Today on CityCast Nashville, we're talking about Nashville's literary culture as well as the Southern Festival of Books, one of the oldest and largest book festivals in the United States that happens right here in Nashville this weekend. We're lucky to have our Hey Nashville newsletter editor Margaret Kingsbury leading the discussion, along with Tim Henderson, Executive Director of Humanities Tennessee, and local author Liz Riggs, whose debut novel Lo-Fi was released earlier this year. And hey, stick around after the interview for our special segment, A Mile in Their Boots, spotlighting people who shape the culture and community of Nashville. Today, we'll be going inside a day in the life of David Reeves, a Davidson County Election Commission poll worker. CityCast Nashville is presented by our exclusive launch sponsor, Tecovas. It's Wednesday, October 23rd. I'm Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. I'll start with Tim. What's the book culture like in Nashville?
We're excited about the book culture in Nashville and around the Middle Tennessee area generally. I mean, we've been doing the book festival for 36 years now, and there is no lack of enthusiasm. As you can hear, it is quite popular, and we've seen that grow. There are increasingly other genre festivals around. Lots of growth in the writerly community. So, with the influx of folks around Nashville, a lot of those creative people who are moving here are writers and published and part of that community, and lots of book club activity and increasing number of independent booksellers, all of which is very exciting to us. And we just want to think about ways we can share our resources to help foster that and encourage that growth of storytelling. So it's an exciting time to be here.
Definitely. And Liz, you are one of these local writers.
I am.
Yeah. I just finished your book last night, Lo-Fi.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Yeah.
Also, I'm so sorry. My dogs I think someone's picking up recycling or something, which I knew might happen. So you're getting to see up close and personal of the true life of a writer, which is wrangling these dogs while trying to talk on here. I'm so sorry.
What would you say about Nashville's writer culture? Are there certain organizations or groups that you've been in as a writer or bookstores that you like?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for me, this is my first novel just came out in the summer. And so I'm truly feel like I'm still dipping my toes in. I was an observer for many years, but for me, it's been a lot of my connection to the literary community here has been through the independent bookstores. I live on the east side, and so I spend a lot of time at the bookshop with Joelle Herr, and my friend Lindsay, who's also a writer, is the bookseller at Parnassus. And those have been like my two big inroads. And then the Porch, obviously, as well. And so I taught a class with them this fall, and it's just been fun. These are organizations and places that I feel like a longtime listener, first time caller, like getting to actually step into that community as a writer and not just as a reader. And I feel like there's so much growth happening. But yeah, that's been a really exciting part about publishing this year or so.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, The Porch is a nonprofit over in East Nashville that gives writing classes, and they have lots of writing programs. And they're really cool. I have a friend that teaches over there too.
If I can interject a little plug too, we have been working with The Porch for many years, and they're great friends of ours and will be a part of the festival this year. They were last year running writer workshops on the Friday before our festival programming starts on Saturday. So yes, just more praise for the folks at The Porch and the work they're doing.
That's really cool. How would you say the book culture is different here in Nashville and the South versus other areas in the U.S.?
I think most of my experience is sort of thinking about New York, where I've been spending more time lately just because that's where my editor and agent are and some of my friends from grad school. And so it's been fun to go up there. And often when I'm there, I do very bookish things. But I think what's interesting, and I think it reminds me a little bit of music in Nashville too, where because there is sort of here with the literary community, because the publishers are not here, there is this focus on what are you reading? What are you writing? What are you working on? And not necessarily a who's who sort of situation. Whereas sometimes when I'm in New York and you go to an event, there's more almost networking happening. I don't want to say there's a purity of literary culture here that there isn't in New York, but I think that is sort of fun of the spirit of it here is a little bit different. We're getting so many people moving from New York and California and whatnot. And I think it's only like been a boon to the literary community here.
Yeah, and that's really interesting too. The idea, a lot of people complain about people moving to Nashville, like locals.
I'm one of those sometimes.
Yeah, but at the same time, it can really enrich our literary communities and other types of communities here. So
for sure, and like Vanderbilt has a really fantastic writing program. For example, my agent went to Vanderbilt. She's in New York now, and that was such a great connection point when I originally queried my novel, because my novel is set here. And I really wanted, I was like, in an ideal world, someone that reads this would have a connection to Nashville in some way. And so I think, like you said, like the more people who move here or live here for a bit and then go to these other places, it's only good. It's awesome to see.
So the Southern Festival of Books has been around for 36 years. Tim, can you tell me what it is for people who haven't been there before and why it started in Nashville?
Sure. So 36 years, as you say, Margaret, that if you ran the numbers, you'd get us back to somewhere around the mid to late 80s. So the Southern Festival started as a part of what was called the Tennessee Literary Homecoming. Homecoming 86, as it was called, I think statewide, was a part of then Governor Alexander's initiative to bring folks back to commemorate the founding of the state. And our role in that was to help organize the literary portion of that homecoming. And so we brought writers who were from Tennessee, but had moved elsewhere back for this sort of festival and celebration. That was the impetus of the initial festival. I don't think at the time it was necessarily conceived to be an annual event. So we worked on those partnerships, worked on building that support, and brought that event back, not just for Tennessee writers, but really for writers regionally and even around the country, and made that an annual event. And it has been in downtown Nashville all but, I guess, 4 years. 2 of those were COVID quarantine years, and 2 years we were doing it in Memphis, in downtown Memphis, in the early aughts. And it's continued to grow. I mean, we continue to see bigger and bigger audiences for it, which is astounding and really encouraging and exciting to us. Authors come, Nashville writers and Tennessee writers are still a very important part of what makes up the core of the program. But writers come in from all over the country and some years even all over the world.
Yeah, there's so many great writers on the list this year. Who are y'all excited about going to see? Liz, how about you?
Oh my gosh, I made a list actually the other day. I should have it in front of me because I basically sent my agent and I was like, these are all the people I want to meet. These are all the people I want to send my book to. I'm so excited. I mean, first of all, it's such an honor and I'm so thrilled to get to be a part of it. Like, this is something I've come to as a reader and as someone who was working on a novel. And so I'm so excited. There are some big ones this year, especially in the literary fiction world. I'm really excited, and I hope it doesn't conflict with my panel, to hear from Sloane Crosley. She's just fantastic, and her Grief is for People this year was just one of my favorites. Rachel Kong, who wrote Real Americans. Alison, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, Espach, who wrote The Wedding People, which I'm in the middle of right now, and I'm like glued to. Those are a few. I'm so stoked to go fangirl to a lot of these writers. And obviously, I'll be there.
Yes. When is your panel?
It's 3 on Saturday.
My pro tip from going is I always make a list of the authors I want to see and kind of put them in order of like must see. And then I look at the schedule and try to plan out where I'm going to go. Because there's always 2 authors I want to hear, or 3 authors that are presenting at the same time. And I have to like choose,
Yeah, it's like going to Bonnaroo. And, as the novelist, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope my set isn't competing with Kings of Leon, or something like that. Sorry, Bonnaroo in 2012, maybe. But yes, that's a good tip, though.
Tim, who are you excited to have on this year?
I'm going to hedge on that question, Margaret, because we do bring in about 200, maybe just under 200 authors this year. So a lot of writers are coming to join us for the weekend. And hedging, not just to not have to play favorites or anything like that, because everybody on the staff who programs obviously has favorite writers and favorite books that we love to read and reread. But sad to say, during the weekend, the staff don't get to really attend anything. It's just one of the curses of working on an event that's so well loved. But we hope it's always obvious that you can look at that program and find books and writers that you're interested in seeing, not just ones that you already know and love, or are interested in, but new titles and new authors and new ideas. This is a big part of how we hope the festival works year to year. And I wanted to say one other thing too about, Margaret, your point about being conflicted, about where you feel double booked or double committed. You want to see two writers at the same time. And it's not necessarily bittersweet for us. There's probably a little bit of schadenfreude we get from seeing people so conflicted. But the pride we take in that is that it means we've got a lot in there that people can choose from. And so we know that it's hard. And we do actually, as we're doing the program, try to make it not so difficult. But that's always going to be a challenge that we sort of relish, I guess, if we're really being honest, because it does indicate to us that the program is really strong.
Definitely. There's always authors I discover every year, often because while there are individual author panels where it's just one author talking, there's some that are multi-authors. So I'll go to hear one and then be really intrigued by another author that's on the same panel and want to check out their books.
All right, admit it. It's time to replace your not-so-trusty old boots. You know the best place to shop for quality, handcrafted men's and women's boots is at your local Tacova store, at the Mall at Green Hills, or on Broadway by the Ryman. That's right, you now have 2 locations to choose from, so stop by and grab a cold one as you peruse. Tacova's Nashville is at your service. It's always a challenge to find boots that fit well and can survive a night walking around town, but you can find your perfectly fitted dream boots with the help of Tacova's expert staff. Your new Western boots can elevate a casual look or add a refined flair to any outfit. Everyone will be asking where you got your sick boots, but I won't be asking because I know they must be Tacovas. That's TECOVAS.com. Don't go gently, y'all.
And we're back, previewing this year's Southern Festival of Books with Tim Henderson and Liz Riggs. I'm going to list some authors I'm excited about since I'm a bit of a fantasy reader. So I'm really excited about T.J. Klune being there. He wrote The House of the Cerulean Sea, which was a hugely popular fantasy novel. And he has a new follow-up called Somewhere Beyond the Sea. I'm also excited to hear Darcy Littlebadger, who is an Indigenous fantasy writer. And Helen Phillips writes very intriguing literary sci-fi. Ping Shepherd, she likes to hug the line of literary and sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah, that's a great list. And I'm glad you mentioned that genre specifically, because there are some big names fantasy writers this year, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah, and there's more than that, too. So if you're a fantasy reader or a children's book reader, there's also quite a few children's book authors on there, which I think is really cool. So besides listening to authors, what other things can we do at the festival?
We try to really pack the weekend for folks, whether you're coming by yourself or with a small group or a family. I mean, there is something really for everyone to do around the festival site. Apart from all of the sessions, which frankly, I'll just say as a side note, often people who stumble up onto the festival and discover us without intending to don't even see the sessions that are going on inside the State Library and the State Museum. They think the outside component is the festival. So there will be music stages all weekend with live performances going on. We've actually expanded some of the performance stages. So we have poets, we have always have drama clubs, other kinds of performances going on outside. Obviously, a long row of awesome food trucks and a beer garden and an entire sort of family and children's area over by the State Museum. We're working with the artist Paul Collins to bring in one of his exhibits that'll be out on display all weekend called Unbannable Books. And these books are unbannable, as you'll see, because they are enormous. And they'll be set up around the Belle Caroline on the Bicentennial Mall. We've got nearly 100 vendors, exhibitors who are all book related who will be set up outside. So there is a lot to do, even apart from attending these, what for us is the heart of the event, which are these author sessions that are going on all weekend.
I always bring a reinforced tote. It's actually a library tote that I have. It's from the Nashville Public Library so that I can fill it with all the books I buy.
Yes.
It's a problem. Yeah.
It's a real problem. We love to create that problem of people having more books that they can carry. And we do sell totes. So if you come by the festival merchandise shed, which is right in the middle of everything, there'll be new book totes there as well as other things too. So.
And the weather's going to be so nice.
Hopefully.
Like actually fall.
Yeah.
Finally, we Nashvillians wait for fall for a very, very long time. We're a patient bunch for the cool weather.
And it's a short window, but we revel in it when we get it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we hope. Well, the footprint for the festival, the site was new for us last year. We moved it up from near the Capitol and the War Memorial Plaza down to the Bicentennial Mall and State Library and State Museum. And that footprint is beautiful. We love it. We love the old site, but we also really embrace the new one and great partnerships down there. Last year, if you were able to come by, the weather was fantastic all weekend. It was beautiful. We're hoping that's going to be the case this year too. But like so many events that have outdoor components, I mean, we do plan it as a rain or shine event. So if, knock on wood, there's a little bit of precipitation, please come out anyway. There's still a lot to do.
I know. I was talking about it like I already knew the weather. Like I was like, it's going to be perfect.
So what's some of your favorite or funniest memories of attending previous festivals?
I mean, Tim, I'm sure you have way more than I do, but I do have one very funny little anecdote, which is that I think it was last year. I was going to see my friend Kat Shook, who wrote a book that had just come out. And I was meeting a writer friend of mine down there and, you know, beautiful day. And I was like, this is so easy. And I drove to the Nashville Public Library downtown. And I was like, wow, parking is so chill. And I texted her and I was like, I'm walking in. And I'm like, it's really, really chill here because it wasn't there. I was in the wrong place. The festival had like at some point, just correct me if I'm wrong. At some point there had been events in the Nashville Public Library downtown.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
It was there for years. Yeah, we did it there for years.
So I was like wow, this is, what a dream. So lovely. And I was already late, mind you, by the way, for my friend's event. And I like text my other friend and she was like, where are you? And I was like, wow, I feel like a really, really like old Nashville kind of dum-dum right now as I'm buzzing over there, you know, I'm trying to find parking. And I was just like, you know, 25 minutes late. And I was just like, well, yeah, I went to the completely wrong place. I went to a place where there was no festival.
I'm glad it moved. Like I remember
there's so much more.
There's more space and also like just walking up that hill. So I attended Catherine M. Valenti had an author reading at the Nashville Public Library. And this is when I was pregnant. I was pregnant at the time. Only had about a month left to go. And I decided to bring I had her entire collection of books and I brought it in a little rolling crate. So I listened to her speak and then I had to walk all the way up the hill carrying 30 books. And by the time I got to where she's signing, I was like totally out of breath and panting and I couldn't even talk to her. I was just like, books.
But you brought the books.
I brought the books,
which is very important.
They are signed.
That's great. And Margaret, that story about walking up Capitol Boulevard, or it's now Ann Dallas Dudley, from the library up to the plaza, always felt like a thing. But it is such an incline that it's very hard to really do very much on there effectively. But again, the library has always been a really important partner of ours. We loved having the events there, loved that space, and still do love that space very much. But we are really learning to love the new site. There's still some ground to cover if you want to get from one venue to the other, but it's a pretty level.
Yeah, it's not an uphill battle.
And everybody's going to be carrying books. You know, everyone's probably got at least one book on them, we like to think.
Yeah.
So
at least one. That's right. And I will say, because, you know, accessibility is really important part of planning the festival to us. We want to make sure that it is truly accessible to everybody who wants to come. You know, this year we're introducing more handicap parking that'll be very close to the festival site itself. So that's going to make just parking really accessible. And we'll be running golf carts around as we used to do up and down Ann Dallas Dudley, but we'll be running golf carts around the festival site too to get people who need that sort of assistance back and forth between sites.
Tim, do you have any favorite moments you remember from a past book fest?
You know, I struggle with that question of favorite festival moments because I've been to so many of them. And there are, every year you could think of a favorite moment from that year's festival. It always feels like that kind of weekend. But one of my earliest years, I think still has one of my favorite festival moments, which was, I believe it was a Sunday. We were scheduled to have Rick Riordan, who is a big name YA writer. We're excited to have him on the program. We programmed him to present in the War Memorial Auditorium, which is, that site was always our biggest venue. Would hold anywhere from 500 to 600 to even more if we used the balcony and set it up right. So could get a big audience in there. And he was scheduled to be like something like late in the day on Sunday. And even before we opened the day on Sunday, right outside the door of the War Memorial Auditorium, a line of young people started forming. And it came down the stairs in front of the War Memorial, out down the plaza to Charlotte Avenue, and all the way around.
Wow.
By the time he presented, there was just this a huge line of young people who had spent the day there waiting to hear this author talk about
Very
his
cool.
books. So
That's
cool.
amazing.
And that the whole day long, you could see these folks just sitting there. They brought their books and they're reading.
Oh,
They brought chairs to sit in. And when he walked out onto that stage, it really was like a rock star walked out. And just to see that enthusiasm for writing and reading
yeah.
among young people was really moving to me. And I've never really lost that memory. It was great. And I remember thinking at the time, this is really why we do this.
Yeah.
To foster and encourage that sort of love for reading and writing.
That's
I
so
love that.
wonderful. Yeah, it's so special.
That's also like the writer dream. Also, like
Yeah.
people are lined up around the Bach for me. That doesn't happen very often.
Liz, before we go, can you tell me a little bit about your book, Lo-Fi?
Yeah. My book is called Lo-Fi. It came out July 9th this year with Riverhead. And yeah, it's a story of mostly following a young woman named Al, who's 22. She works the door at a music venue in Nashville, set in like the 2010, 2011 indie music scene. And really, we kind of follow her through her world as she tries to make friends, make music, find love in these sort of, sweaty nightclubs, late night house parties that were very much key to sort of the indie music scene at that time and sort of a slightly different Nashville. So it's in many ways my love letter to this wonderful city, and also I think a very charming coming of age story.
Yeah, and I could tell you could feel your love of Nashville and the music scene in the pages.
Yay.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's very realistic portrayal too, I think, of the music scene then.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not a musician, but I spent a lot of time in those venues when I first moved here. That's one of the things that I fell in love with in this wonderful city. And so I guess I had to write a book about it.
Yeah. Okay, I want both of you to give me your 1 to 2 sentence pitch. Why should people attend the festival this year?
Well, I'll be there, so easy.
I was going to say
think,
Liz will be there.
Yeah, Liz Riggs will be there. The famed debut novelist. I was going to say, I think that we are so lucky to have a literary event like this in our city. And I think that anyone who cares about reading and writing and wants to, and I know that I feel this deeply, wants to feel more closely connected to that community, and maybe doesn't always find it wherever they are, this is your weekend. There are going to be so many fantastic people at this event. And it's rare to have all that talent and excitement in one place. And so I think that is, for me, what I'm really excited about. It's going to be a party. So.
Yeah, I love that answer. Thank you, Liz. I mean, I would have said a lot of those very same things. And that's with a long history of
that's
working
why I
with
went
the
first.
event. Yeah, that sums up a lot of the sort of experience that we want folks to come out and have. And so, the other things that I would add to that, or maybe just build on, is that because there are multiple fronts to this event. I mean, you can come and spend the day indoors listening to authors and talking to readers and being a part of that community in a physical space together where you're bouncing these ideas off of each other. I mean, it's absolutely an event focused on narratives and stories and experience, but also ideas and just what it, in essence, and this gets to why we do it, I think, it's about what being human means in all of these different facets. So one of the ways we always try to program the festival is, as we put it internally, we want everybody who comes to feel both represented and challenged. So we want you to find something that you'll wrestle with, but also really connect with. The other component that's really important to us is that, as Liz pointed out too, it's really fun. and it's free. So, you can come with and leave if you happen to forget your wallet at home, that's okay. It's still all accessible to you and available to you. So we just really wanted to feel like an event that is for everyone, regardless of how much you read. Maybe this would encourage a love of reading if you're not a reader. So come out and see what it's about, really, just a celebration of the written word.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
Hey, y'all, it's CityCast executive producer Whitney Pastrick, and I'm here with David Reeves, who is a Davidson County poll worker. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm wonderful today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us. So you are a poll worker. Describe what that means to folks at home.
Poll workers, or poll officials, as they're often called by the Davidson County Election Commission. We are the people that volunteer. We are paid, but it's more of an honorarium than pay, to go through the training and be qualified to operate all of the components that you may encounter when you come in to vote. So the person that is checking you in, we are comparing you to a list of voter rolls. Then on the other side of the room, we have the machines that actually process the ballots, the ones where you put your ballot in, you mark it, and then you put it in a scanner to count it. We have been trained to use all of those, and to be one legally in the state, you have to be a registered voter of your county. If you're over 18, if you're 16 or 17, you just have to be a resident of the county. What we do is we try to get you through to where you can make your decisions as you wish in privacy and then leave with as little fuss as possible.
And with a fun sticker, of course. Very important.
We do. And we do change those stickers from time to time. So make sure you vote in every election to see what sticker we have that time.
What drew you to being a poll worker? I don't think I'm giving anything away when I say you seem a little bit younger than the average demographic.
I have been the youngest person to work early voting for the past couple of times. And I originally did it in high school. And for anyone that is 16 or 17 out there, or if you have a 16 or 17-year-old, it looks great on a high school resume. It did great things for me on the college side.
Nice.
I restarted it a couple of years ago. It was one of the elections, and they were saying how they had fewer election workers this time than past time. And I heard that, and I was like, oh, I'll do it again.
Let's walk a mile in your boots. Tell us what you do in an average day of early voting or on election day itself.
For early voting, it is 6 days a week. So for all those, my life is just early voting. That is all that I do. I wake up. I get to the polls. We are making sure that we have everything open, that everything is functional before we open the polls. I will say the most fun part of the day for me is when I'm actually the greeter outside, where because of privacy regulations and everything else, we do not have anyone in the room that is not actually currently at a clerk or at a voting machine. We have them wait in line. So talking to them, it's the only time we really get to have small talk, because every other time we're all business. So that's fun. The biggest thing about day of voting is really the stress of you are setting everything up the day of. You are then tearing everything down the day of. It is by far our longest days. We start oftentimes, I'll try to get there at 5:30. If I can get someone there early with me and we can get into the location, we try to start even earlier just to make sure that everything is fantastic when that door opens.
Why do you think that this job is important? What makes you passionate enough about it to want to spend 12 hours in an elementary school or a library or a community center?
With incredibly hard flooring and your feet always hurt afterwards. It's a job that needs to be done, and I'm passionate about it because, one, I enjoy it. Two, when I vote, always hated having to wait in a line that didn't move. Being there, being able to process things, do things as quickly and as reasonably and as confidently as possible. These are things that I want to provide the visit and the experience that I would want as a voter to our voters. I'm very passionate about the actual yeoman work of the election itself. And that's the type of thing I've always gravitated towards, whether it was my time as a Earth and planetary scientist. I'm a geologist and planetary scientist by training. If it needs to be done and needs to be done well, I enjoy doing it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing that. You're so appreciated. CityCast Nashville is not just a show about news. It's also a show that gives great recommendations, but I know something else about you. And so instead of asking for you to give me a recommendation for where you go to relax and have fun at the end of the day, I want to hear your recommendation for the favorite bar that you host trivia at.
I'd pick 3.
Okay.
1, if it's the audio setup where everything just sounds beautiful, that's going to be Acme, Feed and Seed downtown on 2nd, do a Monday night game there on their sports bar level. That's the 2nd floor. My Monday game is everything that you may want: pop culture, TV, history, mythology, music. For my Sunday game, that's a music game. I enjoy that very much. It's where I am playing song clips and you're naming the songs. That is at the Crazy Gnome Brewery. But my favorite all around, and often my busiest for the week, is actually Corner Pub Brentwood. That's my Wednesday game. It is busy. It is fun because of it. With Acme, as much as I try to get people to show up there, it's just me and tourists. Locals do not go to Broadway. That just does not happen.
It's a recurring theme on this podcast. Awesome. Well, those are some great recommendations. If y'all are into trivia, which I am, go hunt down David at all of those. And it's early voting. Y'all get out there and vote. You've got another full weekend ahead of you in which you can do it if you can't get off work during the day. And then obviously Election Day, November 5th. Use your voice. For all the information you need about early voting and everything else, please go to govotn.gov. And I'll have that link for you in our show notes as well. David, thank you so much for sharing all of the incredible things you do with us here today. Wishing you luck through the rest of this busy election season.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, early voting is underway here in Tennessee until October 31st. So if you can, plan ahead and go vote. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!